Thanks for staying with us. It's time now to take our first hot topic, and fiscal discipline, import substitution will curb inflation is what the economists are saying. They called on Nigerian government to focus on fiscal discipline and support import substitution to tackle the country's rising inflation. Professor Bride Erega of Pan Atlantic University emphasized that the significant increase in allocations from the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee to state governments could exacerbate inflation if these funds are not channeled into productive sectors. Erega highlighted the importance of investing in mechanized agriculture to address food insecurity, improve food production, and mitigate food-induced inflation, suggesting that such investments are essential for achieving self-sufficiency. Professor Tunde Adeoye from the University of Lagos stressed that Nigeria's inflation is primarily a structural issue exacerbated by current economic reforms rather than something that can be solved by the central bank's interest rate hikes alone. He noted that improving security, particularly resolving conflicts between herders and farmers, is crucial to boosting food production and addressing inflation. Effective solutions to these security challenges would have a positive impact on agriculture, thereby alleviating food-related inflation. Our guest this morning is Mr. Segun Sopitan, Principal Partner, Woodridge and Scott Consulting. Good morning and welcome to the program, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Compliments on the season to everybody.
Same to you. Okay, you heard the media briefing, possibly, by the president and the entire roadmap he has and what he has been doing, how he applauded himself that the policies are good and all that. But the experts are saying otherwise. What is, how did you take this advice of the experts? What will curb inflation? Central bank thinks otherwise, presidency thinks otherwise, but the experts are also thinking along a different line. What do you think?
Well, it's, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so it's quite unfortunate when you have policy drivers. I mean, look, the president is the number one policy officer of the country. And whatever happens, down the ladder, whether it's the monetary policy or the fiscal policy, trade policies and all of that, will generally come from the signaling that he puts out. And listening to that media chat yesterday was a bit disturbing because it showed clearly a man that is detached, and it would appear as though deliberately detached from the realities around him, and the realities that are being created by him. Look, the president, nobody at this point.
Seems we're having some technical issues with Mr. Segun Sopitan. We do hope that he rejoins us and talks to us. Well, we're talking about what suggestions that the experts are giving to curb inflation. It seems to be different from what the federal government is thinking. The federal government is thinking along the lines of palliatives to make sure that poverty is gone or eradicated from Nigeria. One of the things is that they're giving 25,000 to some households. We do not know the register they're using. We do not know the parameters, but we hear that a lot of people have benefited already. And I don't know if you watching me right now you know anybody who has benefited from this. So we're just concerned. It's not a bad thing if people can be given some palliatives, but how long will these palliatives go? Are there no other things that can be done to make sure that everybody is comfortable enough and then people can sell for lower? Because you're selling whatever you have. It's like they say, use what you have to get what you want. You're selling whatever you have because you know that if you want to go and get what you want, you may not be able to afford it. So you hike your own price so that you can also get what you want. You want to send your child to school, it's a problem now because accommodation for that child is a problem. Handouts for that child is a problem. School fees is a problem since the onset of this administration. So education is expensive. So if you're selling tomatoes in the market or onions, that is like the new gold right now. You're selling onions. You want that onions to be able to give your child an education that he or she deserves. And so you will be hiking the price of that onion because you know that you're going to use that money for education, which is very expensive. And so goes every other thing that we've been talking about. So inflation is coming, and there are a lot of things that are making this inflation to continue. How is the government looking at this? So the experts are saying, okay, look into agriculture, look into how you're going to allocate, you're going to make things easier to be imported into the country, and so many other things. You make them easier, and then the economy will take care of itself. It's not just what the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing. Every time they have a monetary policy committee meeting, what they do is hike the interest rate. It has been going on and on. Now it's almost 40%, and they're thinking that that is what is going to bring inflation down. But has inflation gone down? It's getting worse. And like my last guest, Mr. Nwandu, was saying, they say it gets worse before it gets better. But at what point will the government know that it is already worse before you begin to think about getting better? At what point will the government know that you could get to a particular place and you find out that what your policies are not good enough? We lost your audio at some point, Mr. Sopitan. Please continue on the train of thoughts that you had.
My apologies. It's a part of the problem that's confronting us as a country that I would have thought that the president would be speaking spiritedly about. So I was saying that, the president spoke like a person that is detached from the realities around him, and it would almost appear as though, that detachment is deliberate. You begin to think that he actually knows the truth, but he's convincing himself that this truth is inevitable. And that's not true, that's a lie. So when people asked him, when he was asked about the policies, that has created the hardship that we are all currently feeling, the response that he had no regrets was an unfortunate response. Because you can't say to a people that you have no regrets for making their life harder. You can't say to a people that you have no regrets for impoverishing them, pauperizing them further in a very short space of time. One of the problems with what has happened is the speed with which it happened, the lack of preparation, both from the implementers of these policies and on the part of the people that would be impacted, by these policies. There was no warning, there was nothing, no time for anybody to make whatever adjustments you have to make. What happened was that we were thrown in at the deep end, and you had to sink or swim. Sadly, a lot of people have, failed to, they've sunk and died, literally in the process. I mean, look at the unfortunate incidents of last week. These are direct victims of the policies that the government and the president in particular is saying he had no regrets about. You can't say that kind of thing to a people that are dying and suffering. So for me, that was quite unfortunate. I think that the president needs to be more circumspect, even in his communication style. I know that, he was a governor in Lagos. I'm a Lagosian for all intents and purposes, and we know this is who he is. He is a man that is given to braggadocious conduct. He speaks with grandeur and almost like an emperor speaking to his subjects. But unfortunately, this is not an empire. We're a republic, we're a democratic republic, and it was election, and it can be impeached. I think it's important for politicians to understand that they derive their power from the people, and you cannot be arrogant and speak as though you're a king to the people that put you in office. Even if you dispute the outcomes of the elections that produced this administration, there were elections. People went out to vote, even if it was rigged, there were elections. So technically, the people put you there. Without the people, you are nothing. The arrogance is quite a bit annoying, but having said that, to come back to the economic policy issues, look, I've listened to what you said, and I've read some of the things that some of economic experts have been saying, and I don't disagree with them. We definitely need fiscal discipline, a whole lot of it, but that's not going to solve it. Look, government must spend. Our GDP is projected to end the year at 3.1%. Our population growth rate is about 3%, which means, technically speaking, we're not growing. The economy is simply stagnating, And if you add inflation to all of that, we're actually regressing. So we need GDP growth rates, double digits for sure, as quickly as we can get there. 10%, 12%, 15% GDP growth rates. That's the solution. It's not fiscal discipline. In fact, we need the government to spend more. Government is not spending anywhere near enough of the kind of spending we need to see to bring about the kind of development we require to take care of the teeming populations of this country. 220 million.
You have to qualify. You have to qualify. The government needs to spend more, because government actually is spending more, but more on what? Qualify that so that we don't miss it.
So when I say government needs to spend more, just talking about the budget process. Now the government says, oh, this is an ambitious budget, 47.9 trillion naira, and it's about 60-70% more than the budget for last year. And then they're patting themselves on the back and saying this is ambitious. Guess what? If you reduce that number to dollars, and you have to do that because our revenues are largely predominantly in dollars. So you need a budget that will reflect that reality. And if you reduce our budget to dollars, Mr. Agaji, we haven't seen any growth. In fact, the budget of President Buhari, the last budget before he left, 2022 budget, this president inherited the 2023 budget and then devalued the naira. So in naira terms, the budget for 2023, the fiscal year 2024, the budget that he himself did was $20 billion US. The budget that he inherited from Buhari was $47 billion US. 47, Mr. Agaji. So our budget has shrunk. This particular budget 2025 is $30 billion US, which is the same as our budget for 2022, which was about 30 billion, and the same as our budget in 2014, which was 30 billion, dollars. So you see, we're stuck, and our population continues to grow. Now, when I say we need to spend more, what I mean by that is, besides fiscal discipline, we need productive, aggressive, productive activities within the economy, especially on the government side, infrastructure spending. Look, we're talking right now via Zoom, and my internet got disconnected. I use fiber. It's cables that are connected to my house. It's supposed to be the fastest and the most reliable. And yet what happened. Why? Because our infrastructure base is simply too weak to support these types of activity on a large scale, of the scale that Nigeria needs it. Energy, power. Look, there is no amount of fiscal discipline that will fix our problems surrounding inflation if we do not fix our power problems. You have to understand the connection between energy, power, electricity, and production and productiveness. And the problem we have is that we're not producing enough. So yes, we have a fiscal problem. There's too much money in circulation. Our money supply shockingly has grown again in spite of all the interest rate hikes. We're now at 108 trillion naira. As at May, June this year, we're on about 92, 95 trillion naira. So while the CBN has been increasing hiking rates, maintaining this tightening stance, so-called, the money supply has grown. As a result of government spending, as a result of the devaluation, as a result of more lending activity, surprisingly, in spite of the increasing interest rates, money supply is growing. So the problem with that money supply is not the money supply in itself. It's the fact that that money is not pursuing productive activities. We're not producing and putting enough goods and services into the market for that money to mop up that money, and it's resulting in inflation. And we can't do that because the infrastructural base required to be productive enough to mop up that money doesn't exist. So we're spending that money on non-productive activities. Some of it is funding corruption. Some of it is just pursuing the dollar and worsening the exchange rate crisis, right? So those are the things that this president and this administration need to focus on. So while I agree with the concept of fiscal discipline, I don't think that's the core fundamental problem. Our core fundamental problem is that we are simply not productive enough. And beneath that, if you do a 5 whys root cause analysis, right beneath that is the power and infrastructure problem. You have to fix that. So I would have thought that what the president energies and, the courage that he has will be deployed towards will be fixing the infrastructure problem. It's a project. You take it on head on, give yourself very, very tight timelines, and deploy all the resources, human, financial, material, towards those problems to fix them. It's a matter of emergency and as a matter of national urgency and priority. That we're not saying. Fiscal discipline will not solve this problem.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about fiscal discipline, I'm also thinking about what one of the experts said, that sending or giving more money to the states might even exacerbate the problem if these monies are not spent wisely. How can the federal government monitor what is being done in the states when we know about the autonomy and all those kinds of things? So what else will we need to do to make sure that our states getting more money will spend this money the way they should spend it? Because getting money is one thing, spending it wisely is another thing. And so what are we missing?
Very good question, Mr. Agaji. Very good question. The part of your question I love the most. What are we missing? Look, first of all, you cannot control what the states do with their money. You just can't. We run a federal system. The state governor is the chief executive officer of the state for all intents and purposes in every way that you can possibly define that, except security. Because so you see, immediately you've created a structural dislocation. The guy is the chief executive officer of his state, but he's not in control of the security apparatus of his state. So immediately there's a problem. Now, look, what are we missing? Let me answer that question. What we're missing is not an economic issue. It's not monitoring what the states are doing with their money. It's their money. They can do whatever they want to do with their money. Obviously within the constraints and confines of fiscal responsibility, accountability to the people, and all of that. But the federal government has no serious oversight, over those things. What is the problem that we have is that those states are taking those monies and they cannot deploy them productively. They cannot and they are not. So on the one hand, if you have a very brilliant state governor, you'll find a way to do some things and generate productivity, with the monies that they're spending, build infrastructure within the limits of what the law allows you to do. But on the other hand, if you have a lazy governor, what you'll find is he's just going to take that money and do whatever he can, knowing that more will come next month. So what we're missing is the structure. Our political structure has to be addressed. Sadly, it's just a reality. You can't run away from it. We can't focus dogmatically on the economic principles without looking at the political structure that are supposed to drive those economic principles. As we speak, we're running an upside-down federal system, an upside-down federation, where we claim that we're a federation, but we send all our revenues to the center, who then, like a Father Christmas, share the money down back to those people, but in a manner that is not commensurate with productive generation and the productive sources of those monies. That structure in itself embodies inefficiency. It encourages laziness. It encourages a lack of productive activity. So we have to fix that if we're going to fix this country. What I expect the president to do, and it's shocking, because this particular president spoke about fiscal federalism almost as a religion until he became president. I mean, just imagine that. It's crazy. How do you talk about restructuring, fiscal federalism, and all of that? You even demonstrated it. You claim you demonstrated it while you were governor. And then you become president and everything has gone quiet. Why in this year and a half that the president has been in office, have we not seen very concerted, intelligent structuring of a legislation that will fix these fundamental foundational problems that we have? Because you see, if we don't fix those problems, we will continue to struggle. It's not as if we will not have development.
Yeah, but he said he does not have any regret for any policy that he has brought, like the subsidy removal that has brought an untold hardship to the people. He said he has no regret. So there's no going back on anything that he has already put on ground. So how do you expect that person to do what he's supposed to do? There's a Resenya report on one hand, there's a creation of new ministries on the other hand. I don't know how he wants to implement that, and we were clapping for him that he was going to implement something that was already more than 10 years old anyway, but at least it was better late than never. Now he's creating more ministries and all that. Ministry of Livestock is coming away from, it's just like we make the same mistake. You pointed it out one time that farmers and headers is just the same. Okay, it was Nikagule that pointed out that farmers and headers are the same thing, because headers are farmers and the crop farmers are farmers. But you are now changing the narrative and saying that livestock is different, agriculture ministry is different, with all the paraphernalia that comes with a ministry, and then you're telling Nigerians you are not going to cut down your cabinet, which means you are continuing to spend unnecessarily. So I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know. He said that the Ministry of Livestock is going to create prosperity for Nigerians. That's one of the points he made when he was addressing the people. So I don't know.
Look, I must be honest with you, Mr. Agaji. I have no problems with the number of ministries we have. I have zero problems with it. Those things are optics. They don't really matter. Creating a livestock ministry is inefficient. I agree. A department of livestock in the Ministry of Agriculture, where you have sat down with the minister and given him the marching orders with milestones, timelines, and very effective key performance indicators regarding the livestock sector or the agricultural value chain, will fix that problem. You don't need a new ministry. But that's not our problem, Mr. Agaji. That's not our problem. Our problem is not cost of governance. Those things are political. They are optics. It's good for the optics when you are making people suffer to show that you are also making sacrifices. That's all it is. If you look at the percentage of the entire federal government and the National Assembly and the judiciary put together, it's less than 2% of the entire budget of the country. And then when you now factor in the subnational budgets, the cost of governance is not a problem. It's a lack of creative thinking. It's a lack of courage to fix the issues that need to be fixed. It's a lack of courage to make a clear departure from the path that we have followed thus far, that clearly is failing us and has failed us spectacularly. We need to depart from doing business as usual. And unfortunately, I am not seeing any signal of any sort whatsoever that this administration will depart from doing business as usual. So cost of governance is neither here nor there. What we need to confront our problems frontally, fix the fundamentals, the foundational issues surrounding structure, fiscal structure, fiscal federalism, and all of those things. We have to fix that. We have to fix our infrastructure problem as a matter of national urgency and emergency. We've got to fix power. It is atrocious that you have 5,000 megawatts and we've been stuck at 5,000 megawatt distribution capacity for 25 years since this Fourth Republic started. We have been at 5,000 megawatts. It's crazy. We need to fix that. We need to fix road infrastructure. We need to fix rail infrastructure. Look, in the process of fixing that, money will follow it to be productive money. And it will create wealth, it will create products, goods and services that money will follow, which will curtail the potential inflationary pressure of spending that money. Those are the things we need to do, sir. All of this, what do you call it, retinue of the convoy of the president and all of that, those things are just sound bites. They don't make any difference as far as I'm concerned. Those are not the fundamental issues. It's annoying when you see it because you know what you're going through, you know what your people are going through, you know the pressures you face from families and friends around you, even people on the street, beggars, people who you look at them, you can see that this guy has not suffered in his life. He's not a poor person, so to speak. He's a middle-class person, but he's coming to you to beg for money for food. It's annoying when you see those convoys. It's annoying when you hear the president say, I don't regret the policy. It's annoying when you hear him say, this cabinet It's exactly what I need, completely unrepentant. It's annoying, but that's not our problem. The president needs to depart from business as usual. I've looked at that budget, Mr. Agaji. That budget is as business as usual as it can be, as it can get. There's nothing in that budget that suggests that this president intends to, start a new path or, a new course for the country. You look at the allocations to certain ministries, departments, and parastatals that are supposed to be the drivers of our development, and it's paltry compared to what you're spending on the business as usual thing. So for me, those are the fundamental questions that we need to be putting across to the president. He needs to show that he indeed is a man of courage. He needs to show that he's a man that has the sagacity to tackle the issues of this country head on and fix them. The CBN will continue to hike interest rates because that's the only language they speak. Asking them not to hike interest rates when money supply is at 108 is like asking a dog to start mewing like a cat, or a dog to start sounding like a cow. A dog will always bark. The CBN will increase monetary policy rates because money supply is growing, but that will never fix the problem of inflation. As the rates are going up, inflation is going to continue to follow it.
All right, Mr. Sopitan, calm down, drink water, and then I've been telling all my guests this morning your New Year, Christmas and New Year message, just in the next 30 seconds, please.
I would advise Nigerians to avoid the pitfalls of peer pressure during the season. This is the season of pressure. Cut your coat according to the money in your pocket, because times are tough and it's going to get tougher next year. So watch it. Don't get carried away. Don't spend money you don't have. Don't go and borrow money to celebrate Christmas. Enjoy your Christmas. If you are alive, there is hope. That for me is it. And then continue to pursue activities that will better the lot of yourself and your family. Compliments of the season. Happy Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all Nigerians.
Same to you. Thank you so much. Well, we've been talking to Mr. Segun Sopitan, Principal Partner, Woodridge and Scott Consulting. We were looking at the policies of the present administration and what the experts are advising that could help in curbing inflation and the hardship in the country. We'll take a short break and return with our next hot topic. Stay with us.